The council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zekthar stepped forward. His forearms gestured at the holographic display floating above the center platform. The image showed a blue and green planet rotating slowly in the darkness of space. "This is Earth," Zekthar announced to the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. "We discovered it 3 cycles ago during our expansion survey of the outer spiral arm." The Vryn ambassador touched a control panel. The hologram shifted to show detailed atmospheric readings, gravity measurements, and environmental data. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as the other species examined the information. "A death world," someone whispered from the back rows. Zekthar nodded his head in agreement. "Indeed, the Environmental Hostility Index exceeds anything in our databases. The planet experiences temperature swings of 70 degrees within a single rotation. The atmosphere contains 21% free oxygen, a level that would be toxic to most species here. Gravity is 1.3 times standard. The surface is 70% covered in corrosive salt water. Volcanic activity remains high. Seismic events are common." He paused, letting the information settle over the council members. Many of them shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The idea of such a violent world was disturbing to species who had evolved on stable, peaceful planets. And yet, Zekthar continued, his voice rising, "This planet has produced a sapient species." The hologram changed again. Now it showed humans. The council members leaned forward in their seats, studying the bipedal creatures with their odd proportions and soft skin. "They call themselves humans," Zekthar explained. "Our xenobiology teams have completed their initial analysis. The results are fascinating and deeply puzzling." Dr. Shlara, a senior scientist from the Krull Collective, stood up. Her crystalline body chimed softly as she moved. "How is sapient evolution possible in such conditions? Every model we have suggests that environmental chaos prevents the development of complex cognition." "We asked ourselves the same question," Zekthar replied. "The answer appears to be that humans didn't evolve despite the chaos. They evolved because of it. Their entire biology reflects constant adaptation to changing conditions." He brought up medical scans showing human internal systems. "Look at their thermoregulation. They can survive in temperatures ranging from -40 to +50 degrees through behavioral adaptation alone. They can consume and digest an enormous variety of organic matter. Their immune systems are incredibly aggressive, constantly adapting to new threats. They heal rapidly from injuries that would kill many of us." "Fascinating," Shlara said, sitting back down, "but also limiting. Such specialization to extreme conditions must make them poorly suited for life anywhere else." "That was our assessment as well," Zekthar agreed. "We believed humans would remain confined to their homeworld. They have recently developed primitive, faster-than-light travel, but we assumed they would find few worlds hospitable enough for colonization. So why bring this to the Council's attention?" asked the representative from the Methane Collective, his voice bubbling through his translation device. "Because we may have been wrong in our assessment," Zekthar said quietly. "We offered humanity a partnership. We proposed to transport human volunteers to some of our more difficult mining colonies, worlds where working conditions are harsh and where our own people refuse to go, even with premium compensation." The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Several ambassadors looked skeptical. "You tested them," Shlara said. "It wasn't a question." "We did," Zekthar confirmed. "We selected 50,000 human volunteers and transported them to 5 different worlds. An ice planet with 6-month nights and surface temperatures of -100. A desert world with acid rain and daytime temperatures exceeding 70 degrees. A high-gravity forge world with 1.8 standard gravity. A toxic swamp planet with methane geysers and sulfuric mud. and a radiation-soaked world orbiting a pulsar. How many survived? Someone asked. Zekthor was quiet for a long moment. All of them. The council chamber erupted. Ambassadors shouted questions in a dozen languages. The translation systems struggled to keep up with the sudden chaos. Impossible, the Methane Collective representative declared. Even with full environmental suits and support systems, those worlds have mortality rates exceeding 50% for trained workers. The humans had standard equipment, Zekthar said, raising his voice over the noise. Nothing special. Nothing beyond what we provide our own workers. And yes, they all survived. More than survived. They thrived. He changed the hologram again. Now it showed human settlements on each of the 5 worlds. On the ice planet, humans had built underground cities with vast hydroponic farms. On the desert world, they had engineered water reclamation systems that captured moisture from the acid rain and purified it. On the high-gravity world, humans moved with increasing ease, their bodies visibly adapting to the crushing weight. On the toxic swamp world, Zekthar continued, they developed new mining techniques that actually increased ore output by 40%. And on the radiation world, they established research stations studying the pulsar's emissions. They're happy there. They formed communities, elected leaders, started families. Dr. Schlara stood again. Her crystalline face reflected the light from the holograms in strange patterns. How long has it been since they arrived on these worlds? 6 standard months, Zekthar answered. The silence that followed was absolute. That's not enough time for significant biological adaptation, Schlara said slowly, which means this is primarily behavioral and cultural adaptation. They're learning to survive through innovation and cooperation. Correct, Zekthar confirmed. And they're doing it faster than any species we've ever documented. What do the humans want? Asked the representative from the Silicon Confederacy. They're asking about immigration policies for their families, Zekthar said. They want to bring more people to these worlds. They see them as opportunities, not hardships. The council members looked at each other. The implications were starting to sink in. Dr. Schlara approached the central platform. She studied the images of human settlements with intense focus. Ambassador Zekthar, has your team calculated the potential expansion rate if humans continue to colonize at this pace? We have, Zekthar said. He hesitated before continuing. If they maintain current growth rates and continue to prefer worlds that other species find uninhabitable, humans could have 10,000 colonies within a century. 10,000, Schlara repeated softly. 10,000 worlds that we've written off as useless or too expensive to develop. And humans will turn them into thriving settlements. There's something else, Zekthar added. The humans have a saying that's becoming popular in their colonies. They say, if you can't live there, call a human. If a human can't live there, wait 6 months and call again. A few council members laughed nervously. Others didn't seem to find it funny at all. I recommend we grant humanity provisional council membership, Zekthar said. They're going to expand regardless of what we decide. Better to integrate them into galactic civilization now, while they're still learning the rules. The vote was called. The motion passed with 70% approval as the council session ended and ambassadors filed out of the chamber. Dr. Schlara remained behind. She stared at the hologram of Earth, watching the violent storm swirling across its surface and the tectonic plates grinding against each other beneath its oceans. What have we done? She whispered to herself. She accessed the council database and filed an official report. Her conclusion was brief but clear. We have encountered a species that doesn't just survive hostile environments. They seek them out. They embrace them. The galaxy has never faced a species that adapted like humans. We cannot predict where this will lead, but we must watch carefully. She added one final note to her personal journal, marking it classified for 50 years. We have invited a force of nature into our civilization and called it a neighbor. I fear we don't understand what that means. Dr. Shalara died peacefully in her sleep 3 days after her final address to the council. Her passing was mourned across the galaxy. Representatives from 200 worlds attended the memorial service on her homeworld of Krell Prime. Among her personal effects, her research team found a sealed data crystal marked with instructions. It was to be opened only after her death and shared with the public record. The crystal contained her personal journal, spanning over a century. The final entry was dated the night before her death. I was wrong to fear them. She had written in a careful script of her native language. I should have feared for us. Not because they would destroy us, but because we had forgotten we could still change. Humanity didn't invade the galaxy. They reminded the galaxy it was still alive. They showed us that comfort is the enemy of growth, and safety is the death of innovation. We needed them, though we didn't know it. I hope future generations remember that the greatest threats often turn out to be the greatest teachers. The journal was published across the Galactic Information Network. Billions read it. Many wept, but there was no time for prolonged mourning. The cascade continued to spread. Despite the collaborative efforts of hundreds of species, star systems were still failing faster than permanent solutions could be implemented. The Adaptation Institute became the center of galactic scientific effort. Its headquarters was established on Earth itself, a symbolic gesture that humanity appreciated but didn't insist upon. Sarah Chun, now in her final years of life, served as the Institute's first director. She assembled a team of the brightest minds from across the galaxy. Humans worked alongside Vryn, Krell, Delphini, Catharin, and hundreds of other species. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young Catharin engineer named Vakresh had grown up on a human forge world. His species, the same ones who had once tried to conquer human colonies, had become some of humanity's closest partners. Vakresh had spent his childhood learning from human metallurgists and engineers. He approached the cascade problem differently than anyone else. Instead of trying to stabilize the stars or evacuate populations, he asked a simple question that nobody else had thought to ask. What if we adapted the stars to us instead of adapting ourselves to the stars? The concept was radical. Stars were fundamental forces of nature. You didn't change them. You worked around them. But Vakresh had learned from humans that every rule could be questioned. He proposed using massive stellar engineering on an unprecedented scale, not to stop the cascade, which was impossible, but to redirect it, to guide the stellar instabilities toward productive outcomes rather than destructive ones. We can't stop the stars from changing, he explained to the Institute's senior scientists. But we might be able to influence how they change. Turn unstable red giants into stable white dwarfs instead of supernovas. Redirect stellar winds. Use the energy output constructively. The human scientists immediately understood what he was proposing. It was adaptation at a cosmic scale. Not fighting against nature, but working with it. The Vryn scientists were skeptical. We've never attempted stellar engineering on this scale. The energy requirements alone would bankrupt entire civilizations. The cascade is going to happen anyway, Vakresh replied. We're just redirecting energy that's already there. We're not fighting the current. We're steering it. A human astrophysicist named Dr. Elizabeth Park slapped the table excitedly. It's like judo, using your opponent's momentum against them. We learned that from human martial arts. You learned it from survival, corrected an elderly human advisor. It's what humans have always done. When you can't stop the storm, you learn to sail in it. The project was approved. It was called Operation Cascade Redirect. Over the next 50 years, Engineering teams worked across 200 star systems. They built massive stellar mirrors, gravity deflectors, and energy channeling stations. The scale of construction exceeded anything the galaxy had ever attempted, and it worked. Star systems that should have become uninhabitable were stabilized. Stellar energy that would have been wasted in destructive eruptions was captured and redirected. Some failing stars were guided into states that actually provided more usable energy than they had before. The cascade didn't stop, but it was no longer a catastrophe. It became a transformation. More significantly, the project proved something that changed galactic civilization forever. It demonstrated that adaptation wasn't just about surviving what came. It was about shaping outcomes through cooperation and innovation. 100 years after first contact, the galaxy was fundamentally different. Human colonies numbered over 5,000, though the 1,000 limit had been officially lifted decades earlier. More importantly, those colonies were no longer exclusively human. They were cosmopolitan centers where dozens of species lived and worked together. On Frostholm, the ice world where Vryn refugees had first arrived, a celebration was taking place. The Vryn homeworld star had been successfully stabilized through Operation Cascade Redirect. After 50 years in exile, the Vryn were preparing to return home. Ambassador Vexna, now very old, stood at the spaceport watching the ships being loaded. A human woman approached him. She was young, probably not yet 30, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had grown up in harsh conditions. "Ambassador," she said respectfully. "I'm Maya-chan. Sarah-chan was my grandmother." Vexner turned, his aged body moving slowly. "Ah, I heard about Sarah's passing last year. She was a remarkable individual. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," Maya said. "She left something for you. She asked me to deliver it personally when the Vryn returned home." She handed him a small data crystal. Vexner held it in one of his 4 hands, confused. "What is it?" "She said it's a reminder," Maya replied. "She recorded it 10 years ago, when she knew she didn't have much time left." Vexner loaded the crystal into his personal device. Sarah Chun's face appeared in holographic form. She looked elderly but alert, sitting in what appeared to be her office. "Hello, Vexna," the recording began. "If you're watching this, it means the Vryn are going home. I'm glad. I always knew you would make it." She smiled. "I wanted to tell you something before you leave. Something I never got the chance to say properly." "Thank you." Vexner's eyes widened in surprise. "Thank you for testing us on those 5 harsh worlds 100 years ago." Sarah's recording continued. "You meant it as an experiment, maybe even exploitation. But you gave us our first real chance to prove what humans could do. You showed the galaxy that we weren't just survivors of one death world. We could thrive anywhere." Her expression grew more serious. "But more than that, thank you for being afraid of us. Your fear and the restrictions you pushed for made us think carefully about who we wanted to be. We could have responded with anger or resentment. Instead, we chose to prove that adaptation and cooperation are stronger than isolation and fear." She leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. "The greatest gift you gave us wasn't opportunity. It was challenge. You challenged us to be better than our potential for conquest, to use our strengths for building instead of dominating. So thank you, old friend. Your species taught mine something we needed to learn." The recording ended. Vexner stood silent for a long time. Maya waited patiently. "Your grandmother was extraordinary," Vexner finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "She turned enemies into friends and fear into cooperation. That's the human way," Maya said with a slight smile. "Adapt and overcome." But she always said she learned as much from other species as they learned from humans. She particularly respected the Vryn. "Even after we tried to limit your expansion?" Especially then, Maya replied. She said conflict reveals character. The Vryn had every reason to hate humans when you needed our help. Instead, you came to us honestly and asked for refuge. She said that took more courage than any military victory. Vexner touched the data crystal gently. I'll share this with my people. They should know who Sarah Chen was, who humans are. Speaking of which, Maya said, her tone becoming more businesslike, I have a proposal. The Adaptation Institute is planning expeditions to unexplored regions of the galaxy. We're looking for new challenges, new environments to learn from. Would the Vryn be interested in joining us? You want Vryn on human exploration teams? Vexner asked, surprised. I want partners, Maya corrected. Humans are good at adapting, but we're better when we work with others. Vryn precision, human flexibility, Krell analysis, Kytherin engineering. Together, we can go places none of us could reach alone. Vexner considered this. My people would be honored. But why keep exploring? You've already colonized thousands of worlds. Maya looked up at the stars visible through the spaceport's transparent dome. Because adaptation isn't a destination. It's a continuous process. The moment we stop challenging ourselves, we stop growing. We stop being human. She turned back to Vexner. Besides, there's a whole galaxy out there. Probably other galaxies beyond that. We've barely started learning what's possible. Vexner made a sound that might have been laughter. You sound like your grandmother. Always looking forward, never settling. That's the lesson humanity learned from our death world, Maya said. Nothing stays the same. Everything changes. You can fight change and lose, or you can change with it and grow. We chose growth. The ships began launching, carrying Vryn colonists back to their restored homeworld. Vexner watched them go, then turned back to Maya. Tell the Institute of Vryn accept your proposal. We'll send our best engineers and scientists. It's time we learn to explore instead of just colonize. Maya smiled and extended her hand. Vexner took it with all four arms. As the young human walked away, Vexner stood alone at the spaceport, watching ships rise into the sky. He thought about the past century, the fear, the conflict, the crisis, and ultimately, the cooperation that has saved billions of lives. Dr. Schlara had been right in her final journal entry. Humanity hadn't invaded the galaxy. They'd reminded it how to live. Centuries later, when galactic historians compiled the records of this era, they struggled to summarize humanity's impact. Some called it the Adaptation Revolution. Others named it the Great Awakening, but most simply called it dehumaning. That peculiar time when one species arrived and refused to let the galaxy stagnate. When adaptation became not just a survival strategy, but a philosophy. When change transformed from threat to opportunity. One historian, a distant descendant of Dr. Schlara, wrote what became the definitive conclusion. The galaxy had never faced a species that adapted like humans. We learned too late that we needed exactly that. They didn't conquer us with weapons or superior technology. They conquered our complacency with their refusal to accept limits. In the end, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't survival. It was teaching the rest of us that we could still grow, still change, still become more than we were. That's not invasion. That's inspiration. On Earth, in the Adaptation Institute's Hall of Records, a simple plaque hung above the entrance. It bore a quote from Sarah Chun's first address to the Galactic Council, the words that had defined humanity's relationship with the stars. We didn't come to replace you. We came to remind you what made you great. And beneath it, added by later generations, they succeeded.